Here's $1 million. Stay away from my daughter. I stared across the sterile coffee shop table at the woman opposite me. Even behind a pair of oversized designer sunglasses, her glare was sharp enough to cut glass. She just pulled a sleek black card from her leather handbag and slid it across the table. Oh, thank God. The day had finally come. Do you have any idea what I've been through to get to this moment? Every single day, I had to face the campus ice queen's glacial stare, try to meld it with my unending warmth and affection. Anything she needed, I was there in a heartbeat. I picked up her packages, personally cooked her meals, and even hand-washed her delicate clothes. Thinking about it, I couldn't stop the tears from welling up. To any outsider, it must have looked like I was crying over a broken heart, devastated by our forced separation. Only I knew the truth. These were tears of pure, unadulterated joy. My investment had finally paid off. Seeing my tears, the woman opposite me seemed to soften, probably thinking my love for her daughter ran deeper than she'd imagined. She immediately pulled out a checkbook, scribbled on it, and pushed it toward me. Take it. You and my daughter were never going to work. Was this really happening? A bonus round. I immediately started crying harder, my voice cracking. Ma'am, what Bella and I have is real love. Please, just give us your blessing. Inside, I was screaming, bury me in your money. I'm only 22. I can take it. Okay, so I was just her simp, a one-sided affair. But this was the opportunity of a lifetime. The theatrics had to be over the top. Who in their right mind turns down free money? Young man, I suggest you take what you can get and walk away. Don't push your luck, or you'll end up with nothing, she said coolly. Had you investigated? You're not even close to being worthy of marrying into the Vance family. Right, whatever you say, lady, I thought, fighting the urge to roll my eyes. Instead, I leaned forward, a mess of snot and tears, reaching for her hand. Ma'am, please, my feelings for Bella are real. I noticed people at other tables starting to stare, their eyes full of pity and morbid curiosity. The attention made my cheeks burn, but the thought of the millions I'd get just for shedding a few tears was all the motivation I needed. I doubled down, my sobs growing louder. Mom, please, just let us be together. I wailed, calling her mom for extra effect. Feeling the heat of the surrounding stares, the woman snatched her hand back, using a silk scarf to hide her face. This is my final offer. If I see you with my daughter again, I promise you, you will regret it, she hissed before scurrying out of the coffee shop. I stayed slumped over the table, pretending to be utterly destroyed. I didn't move a muscle until I heard the throaty, expensive roar of a Rolls-Royce engine pulling away from the curb, the sweet sound of money. Ignoring the gawking onlookers, I wiped my fake tears away and snatched the card and the check from the table. Staring at the long string of zeros on the check, I couldn't believe my eyes. I slowly counted them, one by one. The last time I'd seen that many zeros was when I looked up the price of a penthouse in Vegas. I ripped off my barista apron right then and there and practically sprinted to the nearest bank. I watched as my account balance jumped from 4 figures to 7. In that moment, only 4 words came to mind. Light at the tunnel's end. The second the money hit my account, I pulled out my phone and tapped on my pinned conversation. The screen was a sea of my own green iMessage bubbles, with only a few terse, 2-word replies from her. "K, get food, do laundry." I had to fight back another wave of tears, real ones this time. I was finally free from serving that little princess. Just then, a new message popped up. Bella, Tinders. The single word sent a jolt of anger through me. The golden parachute was secured. I had no intention of staying in this city another day. Why would I put up with her attitude for another second? Cash flow king. Get them yourself. Your Royal Highness's servant is officially off the clock. Bye forever. I didn't even wait for a reply. I hit block, then delete. A complete 1-2 punch. A huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I thought back to 2 years ago. In this very same coffee shop, while I was working a shift, I saw it happen. A wealthy woman threw a credit card at a 6'2" jock and said, "This has $1 million on it. Get away from my daughter." I was stunned. Was money really that easy to make? The guy put on a big, tearful show, but the moment the woman left, a massive grin spread across his face as he picked up the card. He saw me staring and had the audacity to snap his fingers at me. "What are you looking at? Where's my coffee?" That snapped me out of my daze and I quickly handed him his drink. But a plan was already forming in my mind. If a guy like that could score a million, what about me? I was taller, better looking. Surely, I could get at least that much. So I got to work. After some digging, I found out who the girl was. Isabella Vance, the only daughter of New York's wealthiest real estate mogul. Rumor had it her mother had paid off every single one of her previous boyfriends. This just fueled my determination. By some stroke of luck, we went to the same university, which gave me the perfect way in. From that day on, I embarked on the path of the ultimate simp, and there was no looking back. I researched all her favorite things, what she liked to eat, what she was interested in. Whenever I felt like giving up, the thought of that $1 million payday kept me going. I slowly became a fixture in her life. There were other guys who tried to win her over, of course. But once they saw the sheer level of my devotion, they all gave up. None of them had the stamina for my level of simping. I wasn't worried about the competition. She liked the guitar, so I spent 2 months learning to play. She had a craving for beef bourguignon, so I took a week-long cooking class at a French bistro. She said she hated doing laundry, so I became her personal laundromat. Even my best friend since childhood, Chris, told me to give it up. He said we were from different worlds, but I kept my secret plan to myself and continued to be the perfect doting boyfriend. And now it had all paid off. This pain and suffering money was mine, fair and square. I immediately called Chris. "You bastard. We're going out for drinks tonight. My treat." "Whoa, what happened? You finally locked down that rich girl. You're actually willing to spend money on me. Less talk, more drinking. Just come. If you don't, I'm giving your share to the dogs." With a mountain of cash to my name, I felt invincible. My voice had never sounded so confident. "Damn, you son of a bitch. Send me the location." That night, New York was a sea of neon lights. Even the dive bars in the village were packed. I looked at the giant sitting across from me, a guy who looked like he could bench press a car, shoving wings into his mouth like there was no tomorrow. "I'm thinking of heading back home," I told him. He choked on a wing, coughing violently. After a moment, he looked up at me, bewildered. "Wait, are you serious? Did she actually make your boy toy?" I thought he was going to say something profound, but that's what he came up with. I gave him a tired look. "Do I look like the kind of guy who'd live off a woman?" He nodded without a moment's hesitation, a look of pure disdain on his face. "It's not a look. It's who you are. You need to take a good, hard look at yourself. You're the simp of all simps." His words actually made me blush a little. I quickly changed the subject. "So, what do you think I should do when I get back to Ohio?" His eyes went wide. I knew what he was thinking. "No, dude, for real? You're not going to reconsider?" I shook my head calmly. "Of course not. I just made enough money to last a lifetime. Why would I ever work again? To work myself to death so you can inherit my fortune. I mean, I wouldn't mind," he muttered under his breath. I shot him a glare. "So you're not her boy toy?" Seeing the disbelief in his eyes, I told him the whole story, how I'd tricked Bella's mom out of the money. When I finished, he stared at me in silence, then walked over. I watched him confused. The next thing I knew, this 6'7" giant was on his knees, hugging my legs and wailing like a baby. The whole bar turned to stare at us with the weirdest expressions. My face felt like it was on fire. I tried to pull him up, but trying to move him was like trying to move a boulder. As the stares got more and more bizarre, I couldn't take it anymore and slapped him twice hard across the face. The shock seemed to snap him out of it. He stopped crying, looked around at the crowd, and sheepishly returned to his seat. When the audience lost interest, he finally spoke, his face bright red. "You asshole. You had a money-making scheme this good, Dan. You're just now telling me. Some friend you are. You eat more than a horse and sleep in later than one." I shot back. "You're so lazy, I have to spot you rent money every other month. You think you have the patience for a 2-year con?" He actually seemed to consider this, head bowed in thought. After a long pause, he looked up. "You've got a point," he said, before returning to his mountain of wings. That night, the behemoth managed to eat $150 worth of bar food, claiming it was penance for my sins. I didn't even have the energy to argue. The next day, I quit my job in a blaze of glory and, clutching the spoils of my 2-year hustle, boarded a Greyhound bus bound for home. On the bus, I got a weird text from Chris. It just said, "I'm sorry, Leo." Sorry for what? I thought. My money's all there. What could he possibly be sorry for? I sent him a string of question marks, and then the bastard blocked me. A sense of dread washed over me. But then I thought, I'm already on the road. What could possibly happen? I'd even picked a bus driven by a guy with a 30-year perfect safety record. What was there to be afraid of? I relaxed a little, but still kept a tight grip on my backpack. Not 30 minutes later, the bus screeched to a halt, throwing me forward into the seat in front of me. The impact on my forehead sent a sharp pain through my skull. I was about to stand up and give the driver a piece of my mind when the bus door hissed open. A woman in sunglasses stepped aboard. My blood ran cold. I immediately shrank back into my seat. Isabella Vance. I knew it was her instantly. Even with the sunglasses, that frosty, regal aura was unmistakable from 100 yards away. I curled into a ball, turning my face to the window, my lips trembling. "No way," I whispered. "How is she here? I wasn't even that mean to her yesterday. Why would she track me down? Was it because of what I said? It can't be. Please God, please don't let her be here for me. If I get out of this, I'll go to church every Sunday. I swear." I clasped my hands together, praying for a miracle. But, as always, your worst fears have a way of coming true. A powerful hand grabbed the collar of my shirt and yanked me to my feet. I cursed my bad luck under my breath and plastered a fawning, obsequious smile on my face as I turned around. Sure enough, there was Bella, a smile on her face that didn't reach her eyes. I tried for a charming tone. "Well, hey there, Bella. Fancy meeting you here. What a coincidence, right?" I said, try to pry her fingers off my collar. I don't know what they feed her, but for a girl who looked so slender, her grip was like steel. Since force wasn't working, I decided on a different tactic. "You brought this on yourself," I thought. Then, I yelled at the top of my lungs, "So what if you cheated? You have the nerve to chase me onto a bus." It worked like a charm. Every head on the bus swiveled in our direction. Murmurs and pointed fingers started rippling through the passengers. Seeing my success, I smirked at her and tried again to break her grip. But then, she just arched an eyebrow. The look on her face made me pause. A terrible feeling washed over me. I was right to be worried. The next second, she let go of my collar, crumpled to the floor, and started crying softly. Instantly, the accusatory murmurs died down. I watched her stunned. What was her game? Then she looked up, her face streaked with tears, and my jaw dropped. Seriously, she can cry on command. With a trembling voice, she cried out, "I'm pregnant with your baby, and you've been cheating on me. And now you're telling everyone I cheated. Do you have a heart? You stole all our money and ran away. What are my baby and I supposed to do?" Her performance was Oscar-worthy. The voice, the angelic face. If I wasn't the other person in this drama, I might have believed her myself. I just stared at her, dumbfounded, my mind racing. Seriously, what happened to the Ice Queen? Is she putting on a show for me? I felt the hostile glares of my fellow passengers intensifying. Fearing a full-blown riot, I frantically waved my hands. No, we're not married, and I'm not running away. You have to listen to me." But Bella cut me off. "He's lying. He's my husband. If you don't believe me, check his backpack. There's a $2 million check in there." I stared at her, completely floored. How did she know that? While the entire bus's attention was now focused on my backpack, she shot me a tiny, triumphant smirk. For a second, I was mesmerized. It was the first time I'd ever seen an expression like that on her face, instead of her usual icy mask. She's actually really beautiful when she smiles, I thought, momentarily distracted. The man sitting next to me, a burly guy with a trucker hat, snatched the bag out of my hands before I could react. By the time I came to my senses, he'd already pulled out the check. When he confirmed it was for $2 million, the entire bus turned on me. The man, helpfully, handed the check to her. No matter how much I pleaded that the check was mine, they were all firmly on her side, convinced I was a deadbeat, irresponsible scumbag. After some friendly persuasion from the other passengers, I found myself standing on the shoulder of the highway, just as Bella had planned. Luckily, my only luggage was my backpack. Anything else would have surely been thrown out the window after me. I looked down at what was left of my shirt, a few strips of fabric hanging from my shoulders. I looked up at her, trying her best to suppress a grin. "You think this is funny?" I asked deadpan. That was the wrong thing to say. It was like I'd flipped a switch. She burst out laughing, a full, unrestrained laugh. Her laughing didn't help the crushing embarrassment I was feeling. My toes curled inside my sneakers. I glanced around. Thankfully, this stretch of road was deserted. If anyone had seen this, I would have had to dig a hole and bury myself in it. I just stood there, clutching my backpack, watching her laugh her head off. I was genuinely confused. What had gotten into the campus ice queen? First, she hunted down my bus, and now she's acting like a completely different person. If her employees could see their stone-cold CEO now, their entire worldview would shatter. But my main concern was the check clutched in her hand. That was my 2 years of misery and humiliation, my compensation package. I watched her hand like a hawk, terrified she might rip it up. After a while, she seemed to remember her cold, corporate persona. The laughter stopped abruptly. In a blink, her expression reverted to its usual disdain, her joyful face freezing over into an icy mask. Her lips were set in a firm line, and her whole demeanor became intimidatingly oppressive. Well, wait, she's not an actress, I muttered to myself, watching the transformation. Our eyes met for a brief, chilling moment before I quickly looked away. Her stare was enough to make my blood run cold. She gave me one last look, then turned and walked towards her sleek, black car. I watched her back, slowly raising a hesitant hand. My money, I called out weakly. Without looking back, she opened the car door and got in, leaving it open. I knew it was for me. I stood there, wrestling with myself. I wasn't that harsh yesterday, was I? She can't possibly kill me. I'm a human being, and I did take care of her for 2 years. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves, then started walking towards the car. Each step felt like I was walking a tightrope. The moment I got in and shut the door, the driver, who must have been waiting for the signal, floored it. The car shot forward like a rocket. I wasn't ready. I pitched forward, my head slamming into something soft. Not a good day to leave the house, I thought. Nothing is going right. As I braced for impact, I realized the surface my head hit was surprisingly yielding. I instinctively gave a squeeze. Confused, I looked up and met Bella's murderous glare. I snatched my hand back. I didn't do it on purpose, I swear, I said with a pained smile. Unsurprisingly, I was rewarded with 2 sharp slaps. I retreated to the corner of the spacious back seat, muttering under my breath, God, she hits hard. I didn't do it on purpose, and she dares to strike this handsome face. I'll sue her for everything she's worth. I snuck a glance at her. Aside from her earlobes, which were an unusual shade of red, she seemed perfectly composed. I had to admit, even though this woman was a cold, cruel, money-stealing demon, she had an incredible figure. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. And those legs? I could probably admire those for a year straight. I quickly shut my eyes, cursing my own pathetic nature. With $2 million, I could see different legs every day of the week. The thought gave me a surge of courage. I turned to face her, but before I could speak, she beat me to it. I have a feeling that Czech has a questionable origin story. The words caught in my throat. I didn't know how to respond. It's none of your business. It's perfectly legitimate. She let out a dismissive scoff and glanced at me, a look in her eyes that made me feel completely transparent. Then can you explain why my mother's name is on it? Oh, and by the way, my mother also gave you a debit card with $1 million on it, didn't she? I stared at her in horror, cold sweat beading on my forehead as she continued, her voice deceptively calm. And you were planning on going back to your little hometown in Ohio today, weren't you? At this, Bella's mind flashed back to the day before. She had initially thought that blocking Leo was no big deal. But in just one day, she realized how much her life had come to depend on him. At work, there was no one checking in on her, asking if she needed anything. She found herself glancing at her phone every few minutes, her productivity plummeting. When she got home late from the office, the apartment, which she had long been accustomed to living in alone, suddenly felt vast and empty. Staring into the silent rooms, she remembered that the last time she'd felt this way was 2 years ago, before Leo had entered her life. She sat on the sofa, numbly scrolling through her phone, but no new messages appeared. It was then that Bella finally admitted it to herself. She couldn't live without Leo. Just as she was about to go find him, her phone screen lit up. She answered it excitedly, thinking it was him. But the voice on the other end was a man's, a stranger's, and her mood sank again. But the man on the phone colorfully recounted the entire story of how Leo had approached her, scammed her mother out of millions, and was planning to skip town the next day. He told her everything. After hanging up, Bella sat on the sofa, her face in a motionless mask, a strange light glinting in her eyes. She had changed her mind. An online confrontation was boring. A real life one would be much more interesting. And that led to the scene on the bus. Hearing her recount this, I finally understood. That fat bastard Chris sold me out. No wonder he texted me, saying he was sorry. I silently made a vow. If I survived this, I would tell everyone the story of how he fell into a septic tank as a kid. If I was going down, he was going down with me. I looked at her with the resolve of a martyr. Fine, you caught me. What are you going to do? Kill me? To my surprise, she just chuckled, a strange look on her face. Who said anything about killing you? Huh, you're not going to kill me. Then why go to all this trouble to catch me? I stared at her, completely lost. You don't need to worry about the affairs of beautiful women. She lifted her chin arrogantly, her arms crossed over her chest. I was speechless. The ice-cold CEO had suddenly turned into a bratty teenage girl. The switch gave me whiplash. My eyes drifted back to the check clutched in her hand. If she wasn't going to kill me, then there was still a chance I could get my money back. I studied her face. Seeing no immediate danger, I cautiously leaned closer, my hand slowly inching toward the check. But it was like the driver had a personal vendetta against me. He slammed on the brakes again. My center of gravity vanished, and I went flying, landing right on top of Bella. Ma'am, there's an accident up ahead, the driver explained calmly. Well, your boss is probably not in a state to respond right now, I thought grimly. Once the car was stable, I quickly scrambled off her, pulling my hand away from her legs. As much as I didn't want to, her murderous glare told me my life was more important. Misunderstanding, total misunderstanding. Let me explain. No, let me make an excuse. I was just trying to get my check back. I shot back to the furthest corner of the car, but I still couldn't escape another round of blows. This damage hits so hard, I muttered, rubbing the sore spots on my head. Do you still want to check? I was just saying what a beautiful, powerful woman you are. A true inspiration to us all. I saw her glance my way with a tilted head and quickly laid on the praise, terrified she'd come over and hit me again. She let out a soft humph and turned away. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Whoever marries this monster is in for a world of pain, I thought viciously. So Ms. Vance, I said, pressing myself against the car door, watching her carefully. How can I get my money back? She stared calmly out the window. Wait, just say no if you're not going to give it back. What's this wait business? Am I supposed to wait until I'm old and gray? I grumbled internally. I turned to look out my own window and suddenly realized this wasn't the road into the city. A wave of panic hit me. Where are we going? I asked, my voice trembling. My mind immediately flashed to tomorrow's headlines. Local man found missing one kidney after mysterious encounter with wealthy heiress. In my imagination, Bella was wearing surgical scrubs, her face twisted into a demonic grin with sharp fangs. Time for a kidney removal, she'd say. I stared at her, swallowing hard. She seemed to read my mind and let out a small laugh. Don't look at me like that. I'm not interested in your tiny little kidneys. This road leads to my house. I breathed a sigh of relief, though I was a little offended by her calling my kidneys tiny. I really want to tell her, want to bet? I'll show you what an indestructible diamond kidney is. But I could only think it. Then her words fully registered. To your house? I yelled. Unsurprisingly, I received another sharp rap on the head. Okay, that's it. Even a saint has his limits. This was the third time. I have a temper too. Even God himself couldn't stop me from hitting her back. I swear it. Just as I was about to retaliate, she held up 2 fingers. I glared at her. What's that supposed to mean? $200,000. For all the times I just hit you. $20,000 per tap. I actually laughed out loud. Do I look like that kind of person? $300,000. Deal. This is where the wisdom of knowing when to quit while you're ahead comes in. It's just business, right? Nothing shameful about it. As for what I was thinking a moment ago, well, with enough money, even the gods can be persuaded to bow their heads. I immediately pulled out my phone, opened my Venmo app to the QR code, and gave her my most dazzling smile. Ma'am, that was 5 taps. $150,000 total. Wait, I'll give it to you with the check. My smile vanished. Fine. Stringing me along now, are we? The fight had gone out of me. If I hit her now, I wouldn't have the same righteous fury. But if I didn't, I'd have taken the beating for nothing. For a moment, I didn't know what to do. I just sulked in my corner. Relax. I'm not the type of person who goes back on their word. I certainly hope not, I thought. I don't know how long we drove, but eventually the luxury car turned onto a narrow, private road. We passed through a man-made forest of maple trees, and then the view opened up to a vast lawn with a building that looked like a modern castle. As the car slowly approached, two stone lions flanking the massive front gate seemed to grow more imposing, their eyes looking almost alive. Get out. We're going in. I hadn't even noticed Bella get out of the car. She was already at the front door. Oh, I said, scrambling out of the car to follow her. The moment we stepped inside, it wasn't the opulent, gold-plated palace I expected. The main feeling I got from the place was one word: empty. The second I stepped over the threshold behind Bella, the first words out of her mouth nearly made me trip. Those stone lions by the gate are worth $2 million. Every single object in this house is worth at least $100,000. She walked me through the house, pointing out the value of each item. For the first time, I was getting a glimpse into the world of the truly, obscenely wealthy. Even a random painting hanging on the wall was the work of some famous dead artist. Okay, sit here and wait, she said, pointing to a wooden chair. I looked at her, completely baffled. Why bring me to her house and give me an appraisal of all her stuff? I decided to be direct. Ms. Vance, why did you bring me here? What's the point of all this? She just gave me a mysterious smile. Wait, always wait. If you don't tell me what's going on, I'm leaving. For once, I felt a surge of confidence. Oh, really? This entire property is a private estate, miles from anything. The nearest main road is a 20-mile walk. If you want to leave, be my guest, she said with a dangerous glint in her eye. But I should warn you, the coyotes around here would be very grateful for a meal like you. She patted me gently on the shoulder, and my legs gave out. I collapsed onto the wooden chair. Bella didn't comment on my pathetic display. She just turned and walked up the stairs. Watching her go, I called out weakly, "Be right back, okay?" Her footsteps paused for a second, but she didn't turn around, continuing up until she was out of sight. Pathetic. So pathetic. I couldn't believe I let a woman intimidate me so easily. I covered my face with my hands. After a while, she still hadn't come back down. I couldn't sit still any longer and started pacing around the room. I looked at all the decorations, my tongue clicking in amazement. To me, these weren't works of art. They were stacks of cash, checks with long strings of zeros. Looking at them, I couldn't help but think that if they were mine, I'd sell them all for cold, hard cash. That's the only way I'd feel secure. Every time I looked at a new piece and thought about its price, I'd sigh. All that good money turned into these old, useless things. Just then, the front door burst open, and a woman's voice called out, "Bella, the housekeeper said you were home." "It's you," we both exclaimed at the same time. Of course, it was Bella's mother. The moment I saw her, her words from the coffee shop echoed in my head. "If I see you with my daughter again, I promise you, you will regret it." I had a very bad feeling about this, and I was right. Before I could even think of what to say, she flung her handbag straight at my head. "You slimy toad, you followed us home." As she stormed towards me, she started grabbing random decorative objects and chucking them at me. Thanks to years of practice dodging angry customers, I managed to avoid them. But watching her carelessly throw around things worth more than my entire life, I couldn't help but feel a pang of anguish. That was all money. After what felt like an eternity, Mrs. Vance was out of breath, leaning against a wall to rest. I finally had a moment to catch my own breath. She was tired from throwing, I was exhausted from dodging, and she really was trying to kill me. "Ma'am, Mrs. Vance, please, listen to me," I panted, leaning against the opposite wall. "Let me just catch my breath. It's not what you think. You liar, I haven't even come after you yet. All that talk about true love. You're just a pathetic simp. I haven't even settled the score with you, and you have the nerve to show up at my house." Her words made me feel a little awkward. I had admittedly laid it on a bit thick, but then I remembered that her daughter had stolen my check, and a wave of anger surged through me. "You think I want to be here? Your daughter practically kidnapped me and brought me to this godforsaken place," I yelled, looking around the room with disgust. My eyes fell on the shattered pieces of art on the floor, and I felt another stab of pain. I saw Mrs. Vance pause for a second. I think she was finally starting to put the pieces together. Right on cue, Bella came down the stairs, a frown on her face and a stack of papers in her hand. What's going on here? What happened? I ignored whatever she was holding and marched right up to her, my voice cold. Where's my money? Just sit down. And Mom, you sit down too. I watched as Mrs. Vance obediently sat down on the long sofa. If she wanted me to do something, I was going to do the opposite. I ignored her command, my tone more forceful than ever before. I held out my hand. My money. Sit down. I looked at Bella's face, which had turned to stone. Her eyes were flashing with a dangerous light. I swallowed hard, but stood my ground. No. 1 minute later, I was sitting meekly on the sofa next to Mrs. Vance. Thinking back on that minute, I still couldn't believe that Bella, a woman a head shorter than me with a slim figure, had managed to execute a perfect over-the-shoulder throw. Mrs. Vance leaned over and whispered, "She has a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu." My God, I thought, completely defeated. Thanks for telling me now, after I've already been thrown across the room. Bella walked over, her face grim. You never listen to reason, do you? You always have to force my hand. What could I say? What dared I say? Might makes right. She slapped the stack of papers down on the coffee table in front of me. Sign this. Not only will I give you your money back, but I'll also give you a monthly allowance. She would be that nice? I highly doubted it. I picked up the papers. The words marriage agreement were printed in bold at the top. Not only was I stunned, but Mrs. Vance, sitting next to me, was too. Before I could say anything, she shot to her feet. I do not approve. He has nothing to offer other than being tall, handsome, and good at housework. He brings nothing else to the table. I looked at her, surprised. I didn't know she thought so highly of me. Bella turned a cold gaze on her mother. I'm informing you, not asking for your permission. I watched as Mrs. Vance's lips moved, but before she could speak, Bella cut her off. Mom, you should think carefully before you speak. I now control nearly 70% of the shares in Vance Industries. If I cut you off, you'll be out on the street. Mrs. Vance trembled, unable to say a word. She finally just sat back down. Bella's mood seemed to improve slightly. Good. It's settled then. Mrs. Vance noticed me looking at her and said haughtily, Well, I guess you got what you wanted, didn't you? You gold-digging freeloader. I was completely baffled. I didn't even provoke her. Why was she taking her anger out on me? And did these two just decide my entire future without consulting me, the main party involved? I finally cut them off. I don't believe I ever said I wanted to marry you. Mrs. Vance looked at me as if she'd seen a ghost. Bella, on the other hand, looked like she'd been expecting this. She crossed her arms, a confident gleam in her eyes. You might want to read the terms. I guarantee you won't refuse. Seeing her so confident, I was curious. I started flipping through the agreement. The first few pages were standard stocks, real estate, things I didn't care about. To me, only cold, hard cash was real. Then came the section about my duties. Cooking, cleaning, all the usual stuff. I still wasn't seeing anything that was particularly beneficial to me. But I patiently kept reading. And then I saw it. A monthly allowance of $100,000. I immediately flipped to the last page and signed my name with a flourish. I stood up and looked at the confident woman across from me. I had to admit, she was a damn good judge of character. I extended my hand. A pleasure doing business with you. She smiled and shook it. Only my future mother-in-law was left sitting there, completely lost and bewildered. 1 month later, a new headline dominated the news cycle. Shocker. CEO of Vance Industries marries a complete nobody. The entire city was buzzing, speculating about the mysterious man who had won the heart of the city's most eligible bachelorette. Bella had issued a strict gag order at the company, so the groom's identity was a tightly guarded secret. Only a handful of insiders knew who he was. But while the internet was in a frenzy, the two people at the center of the storm were surprisingly calm. In the bridal suite after the wedding, Bella and I just stared at each other. We both knew what was supposed to happen next, but we were both complete novices. So we just sat there in an awkward silence. This couldn't go on forever. I clear my throat. So, maybe we should watch a YouTube tutorial or something. A playful, teasing smile spread across her face. She covered her mouth with her hand. Don't tell me you can't get it up. That was a direct challenge. A challenge I couldn't ignore. I lunged at her, but I had forgotten one very crucial detail. She was a jiu-jitsu black belt. The outcome was predictable. I was pinned down, completely overpowered. And that's how I spent my humiliating wedding night. The next morning, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I just couldn't figure it out. All I wanted was a little severance pay. How did I end up as a kept man? After a long time, the answer finally dawned on me. It was because I was both greedy and horny. With that realization, I felt a sense of peace. I had earned my place as a freeloader through sheer talent and hard work. And hey, a cushy life is a cushy life, no matter how you get it. Right? And